If you're thinking about cutting back on your spending or you want to give frugality a try, but you're worried that you're going to feel deprived, trust me, I get it. Living frugally did not come naturally to me at all, and it took a while for me to get it right. I grew up in a household that struggled with money. We lived with less, not because we chose to, but because we had to. And when I got my first big girl job, and by big girl job, I mean being a barista at Starbucks part time, I spent everything I had on whatever I wanted. I didn't want to save a single penny because I just wanted to buy all of those things that I wanted growing up that I couldn't get. Basically, I didn't want to save. I just wanted to spend my money so that I felt successful, so that I could make up for all of those times when I went to school and didn't have the latest Game Boy or a pair of jeans or whatever it was that all the kids had that my family just couldn't afford. To me, frugality always meant going without, living with less, being kind of weird and penny pinching ways. But once I realized that frugality can mean something different for everyone, I stopped seeing it as something that made me feel deprived. And I started feeling more like it was something that was actually kind of fun and empowering. So these days, this is how I live frugally while still having fun and not feeling like I'm missing out on anything. The first thing is something that I loved when I was a kid and kind of forgot about as I got older, and that's having a library card. It seems so basic. Like, I feel like it's number one on the list of like anything, any list that is telling you frugal activities to do. It's like, oh, go to the library, you'll have books, you'll have musical instruments, there's like free community events, blah, blah, blah. But I really do feel like having a library card and utilizing the library is such an underrated resource, especially if you're a big reader like me. For all of my 20s, I was spending thousands of dollars on books. At one point, I counted and I had literally over 1,000 books in my bookcase. And now I read just as much as I did before, but I would say 90% of my books I get from the library. And honestly, it gives me almost a bigger dopamine hit than buying books because there's a delayed gratification that comes with using the library. So, for example, if there's a new thriller novel or beach read that I want to read and it's coming out, once I put myself on the wait list, I know it's going to be a while before I get to read that book. But when it does come in and I get to go pick it up, it feels just as good as shopping, maybe even better because I had to wait for it. And it actually makes me read more because you only get the books for, I think it's 2 weeks at a time, and sometimes you can renew. But if it's like a hot new book, then you can't renew, which means you have 2 weeks to finish that book. So even though I love reading, sometimes I'll fall into reading slumps, but this makes me really stay consistent with my reading goals because if I want to finish a book, there's a deadline that I have to meet. Another way that I don't feel deprived while living frugally is buying secondhand, trolling Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace has become one of my favorite things to scroll. I actually recently deleted Instagram from my phone, which is another topic for another video. And I kind of feel like I replaced that screen time with things like Facebook Marketplace, especially right now because I just moved into a new apartment and I had to kind of like rebuild the essentials after living abroad and coming back. But I feel like you can find so many cool things. It's like virtual thrifting. But yeah, if there's something I want, say for example, when I came back to Canada, I'm not ashamed to admit that I really wanted a cool cup. I don't know, I fell into the cup crowd. I didn't get a Stanley, I got a Yeti. But instead of buying a Yeti new, I found one on Facebook Marketplace in a really cute lavender color, and it was like $20. So even if you're living on a budget, you can still have the like, I don't want to say you can still buy into consumer culture, but if there are things that you genuinely want, you can still have room in your budget to buy them if you are willing to sort of like look around. And speaking of looking around, another way that I find frugality fun is getting creative with solutions, finding workarounds, and kind of seeing it like a hobby rather than something that I'm forcing myself to do. It makes it feel like it's more intentional. So, for example, and this is not the most thrilling of examples, but as I mentioned, I just moved into a new apartment. And instead of outfitting it, furnishing it fully, like just going wild, and buying new things, I find workarounds with things that I already have. So I have a patio space and I already had a little outdoor bistro set, which had a table and 2 chairs. And instead of buying like folding chairs or whatever to set up when I have friends over for dinner parties, even though you can find folding chairs for like $20, I just repurposed my outdoor patio set as an indoor table. And nobody cares. Nobody minds coming over and sitting on a patio chair. Maybe it's because I have really down to earth and cool friends, but it's just stuff like that. Like, yeah, it's not the most ideal, or maybe it's not what you would do if you were spending without a care in the world, but it works. And that's money that's still in your bank account, or money that's going towards your debt, or money that's not going on your credit card. Another way that I make living frugally fun is actually by talking about it with my friends. So I feel like there is maybe like an outdated trope of like you're not supposed to talk about money with your friends, that debt is shameful and something you should try to hide and keep up with the Joneses and whatever. But I love talking about debt, getting out of debt, living frugally, etc. And I talk about it with my friends, and a lot of my friends have told me they're in the exact same position as me. So they got their first jobs out of university in their 20s, they lived large in the city, and now in their early 30s, they're trying to pay off debt or save for a house or do other things that require a little bit of sacrifice. And so, for example, last week, I made plans with a friend that I hadn't seen in a while. We were friends at Starbucks, actually, and we kind of kept in touch over the years. And then when I moved back to the city, I reached out to her. So we ended up going to a wine bar, which is something that we would have done before I left the city and when I was still like riding high on my credit card debt. A wine bar would not be out of the question. So we sit in this wine bar and we get to talking. And suddenly I start talking about my debt. And she shares that she's also trying to get out of a ton of credit card debt. So we were like, if we had have just been open about this when we were making the plan, we could have done something that was like, share a bottle of wine at one of our houses or go to a cafe instead of going for wine. Like, there's so many lower cost things that you can do that doesn't involve spending like $100 out at a fancy wine bar. And that's not the only time that that has happened. I've had many friends tell me that they're changing their spending habits as they hit their 30s and they're prioritizing budget friendly activities. So, talking about it with your friends, if your friends are cool and open minded people, it's only going to do good things, and chances are they probably also don't want to be spending money going out. Living frugally is also not a one size fits all. So, if there are things that you want to prioritize, that's kind of what it's all about. So, for me, I would rather give up space than give up a clean, modern building. My apartment is really, really tiny, and I think a lot of people would find it too tiny for comfortable living. I know one of my friends, she just bought a house, and when I had her over to my studio, she told me it felt like walking into a dollhouse, which for me, I took it as a compliment, even though she didn't mean it as one. I think if you know yourself and you know what you want to prioritize, then actually cutting out the fat in places that doesn't actually matter to you makes it not really feel like you're giving up anything that matters, because you're not. And that's another thing about living frugally, is that I feel like for the first time I really know what I like and what I don't like, because I don't have money to spend on everything. So I only choose the things that are the most important to me and that I know I will get the most enjoyment out of. So last year I was living in Istanbul, and instead of spending money on things like clothes or fancy menus at restaurants or anything like that, I decided to invest in Turkish lessons, because something that I've learned about myself and that I've known for a long time but kind of forgot is that I absolutely love learning new languages. And when you're no longer spending money on the filler things in your life, it's like your life just feels more full. So for me, like, I'm spending probably a quarter or less of what I was spending when I was in my shopaholic phase, but my life feels so much more fulfilling now because I prioritize the things that actually bring me joy, and not just everything. Not just things that I think will make me look cool or things that I think I might like. Like, no, I really trimmed out the fat and only spend on things that I know have a good personal ROI, return on investment. And really, I've used it as a way to boost everything in my life. So I've talked about this in other videos, but living frugally and really working out the kinks of how to live a good life while living frugal has really boosted my entire life. Like, it's been like a wave, because once I could prove to myself that I was able to make this lifestyle change, I basically challenged all of the things that I thought I couldn't do before. So I learned to swim, I got my driver's license, I moved abroad for the first time, I left a relationship that wasn't fulfilling. All of these things I don't think I ever would have been able to do if I wasn't living frugally and proving to myself that I can do the hard things. And to be fair, I don't think that it's a hard thing now for the most part. It just takes practice. And once you work out your own personal frugality workflow, it just feels really good. Having an iced green tea in my free McDonald's cup that my brother gave me. And I will be honest, sometimes it does feel a little bit hard when there are things from my old life that I miss. Like, I think of things like when I would just go travel and put a trip on my credit card and just pretend that my credit card bill didn't exist. Like, obviously, I don't miss the credit card bill, but I do miss just like jetting off and going somewhere just for the sake of it and not having to have a sinking fund or have it be a work assignment or something like that. Like, there are things that I miss, but honestly, you just have to romanticize it. You kind of have to, in the beginning, you kind of have to gaslight yourself a little bit and tell yourself that you're enjoying it. And then you eventually just do, honestly. Like, I used to be the biggest like DoorDash Uber Eats person ever. I feel like I was probably spending like close to $1,000 maybe a month on delivery services. This was like very like near the pandemic time. But I was like, I had an illness that, anyways, my life was kind of hard at that time. So I compensated with spending and spending on Uber Eats. I would get lunch because I worked from home probably like 2 to 3 times a week. And I would order dinner for myself and my partner probably 2 to 3 times a week as well. And when you do it that much, like, I still enjoy delivery sometimes as a treat, but when you're doing it that much, it no longer feels special. It just feels like you could just make like a boxed pasta and it would be the same level of like enjoyment at that point. But now I very rarely, if ever, order takeout. Even though I loved it, now I get the $3.50 no name cheese pizza, frozen pizza from Maxi or Superstore or wherever, whatever it might be. I'm in Canada, so it's, but I will tell you, my $3.50 no name cheese pizza, I swear, has become part of my identity. Like, everyone in my family, I was living with my mom and my stepdad for a while as I got back on my feet when I came back from abroad. And they knew it was Friday night. Like, Kate's not eating dinner with us. She's having her $3.50 no name cheese pizza. Like, I kind of feel like it's actually good, but for a frozen pizza and for $3.50, you can't go wrong. And like, when I went over to my dad's house before I left Nova Scotia to move back to Montreal, he also had a $3.50 no name cheese pizza for me. And I was like, oh my God, like that's what we ate for dinner together. And I was like, thank you for participating in my culture. Like, this means so much to me. And I'm just saying, like, little things like that, if you romanticize it and kind of just have fun with it, it actually ends up genuinely being fun. I might sound a little like bananas, but like, I swear, Friday nights with my frozen pizza, and for a while I was having frozen pizza with like a Diet Coke. Now that I've gotten out of most of my debt, I'm still paying some off, but I've become a little bit more lenient. So on Fridays, I have my frozen pizza and a $10 bottle of white wine. And it is like, I genuinely look forward to it all week. So just romanticize slash gaslight yourself into believing that you're having fun, and it becomes fun, I swear. And honestly, I just feel like it's kind of cool to go against the grain and live this way. I used to tell myself that it was only temporary, and after I got out of my tax debt, I could have a little bit, like, I could not go back, but I could, like, start treating myself again, or, like, buy a designer item when I want to, or go out for a fancy dinner. But the more that I live this way, the more I feel like it's actually cooler to be kind of like a millionaire next door type. So, like, I'm definitely not a millionaire next door yet, hopefully, one day. But I just feel like it just shows that you have self-respect, or, like, you're not afraid to go against the grain of society. Like, we live in such a consumerist society, and it's like, spend, 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 like, have the latest stuff, look good, like, you wanna look like you're successful if you wanna be successful, and it's like, I actually think the true markers of success come from, like, obviously, like, there's all kinds of markers of success that are not, they don't have to do with how you look. And I actually think it's kind of cooler to just live life for yourself and be fiscally aware of what you're doing. I feel like in this day and age, there's, like, no guarantee for what the future looks like. So when you are able to kind of, like, get ahead where you can, instead of spending on things like, outward markers of success. It's just like, it's so much cooler to me. And I feel like I will not ever go back to that. Like, I just feel like if you have a positive mindset going into it, then you're only going to win. Um, like, it might feel a little bit like not as fun as spending your entire paycheck, or not as fun as going into debt and pretending that your credit cards don't exist. But, like, it becomes fun when you realize that you're doing the things that you enjoy and you're not going into debt for it. You're only doing things for yourself, and you realize that you're upskilling in ways that you probably wouldn't have if you were just in spend mode all the time. Like, I feel like I'm such a I'm more confident in my abilities now because I've done things that because I try to problem solve instead of just, like, spending money to fix a problem. So, like, if this were me 3 years ago moving into this apartment, I would have paid someone to hang my big paintings. I would have paid someone to hang my mirror. I would have gotten groceries delivered here so that I had food right away as soon as I landed in Montreal. But it's like, when you're doing these things for yourself, it feels like it's not just frugal living and, like, you're struggling because you don't want to spend the money, but you're actually proving to yourself that you're able to figure out problems and be more self-sufficient. And I just feel like that's so much better. To me, that's way more fun. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you do to make frugal living more fun, and I will see you in the next one.